Hello, my name is Frederick. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Canvalytic. We're making a AI-powered workspace for structured problem-solving and decision-making. So we've basically taken the techniques that are used by professions that have a sophisticated approach, like strategy consulting and intelligence analysis, and we've amplified those techniques and put them into a nice, intuitive and streamlined platform to make it accessible and user-friendly. And then we've also boosted it with AI, so it's much more useful on top of that. So one dimension of this is that we have this AI assistant, which is like having an AI strategy consultant by your side that can break down problems and do analysis and research. And then the other dimension is it's a general tool for support and augment human intellect, making people more able to solve complex problems and make good decisions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my AI assistant to create an issue tree for me, which is the tool that's used here. I'm going to add, I'm just going to add this like study to give it a little bit of background information and context. So the question that we're investigating is, why is there a increased prevalence of kidney disease among agricultural workers in 2 Central American countries? So it's basically a root cause analysis looking into some very complex phenomenon where determining what the causes are is not easy. You got to look into some data. You got to do a systematic investigation, and maybe the causes are interconnected. So now the AI assistant gave me the issue tree, and I clicked here and added it to my canvas. What we have here is an issue tree, in particular root cause analysis. I'm just going to close these. The first breakdown, it breaks it down into like high-level categories or buckets of potential root causes of this problem, and these buckets together cover the whole space of possible causes. And then it breaks it down into a little bit more detail, a little bit more concrete, but still kind of categories or buckets. And then it breaks at the final level, it breaks down into like specific causes, which are very concrete and which you can look into and evaluate as a single like piece of analysis. And so now that we have this tree, what do? We basically, you want to look into these. The flow of your analysis goes from these furthest out nodes, the most specific things, and it flows upwards to the top level. Basically, you want to eventually answer your top level question by doing a discrete analysis of components. So let's say I decided to, all right, I'm going to investigate whether this is a cause of this problem. Are workers exposed to blah, blah, blah. I'll get my AI assistant to do it for me. I'll tell it that I'm working at this level right now. I'm on this node. That's the context. I still have this file uploaded, so I'll say like, is there anything in this file that says that pesticides or other chemicals are the cause of this problem? So now it's thinking. Let's see. Okay, so the AI assistant answered, no, doesn't establish pesticides as definitely the cause of CKD in this population. It says it's multifactorial. Okay, heavy metals, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then so once I looked into this, and obviously I'd have to go a bit deeper than this, but let's say I do my analysis, I look into this. We're trying to be like scientific or hypothesis driven here, so this is like a hypothesis that can be confirmed or rejected. So I can say, yes, this is confirmed, or I can say it's disconfirmed, or I can say it has like a degrees of truth or likelihood, approximate like likelihood or approximately degrees of truth. And then, you have the rest of the tree. You would do something similar for the rest of the tree, look into, but the thing is that this tree is like huge, so you probably don't have time to look into absolutely everything. So actually before you start doing analysis, you want to prioritize and like make a plan. So the prioritization one of the most important things you would do is you would probably want to rule out some branches, some possibilities. For example, I don't know, let's say this one, so this one as just the first, guess is, this one seems like implausible. It seems like this isn't the cause of the problem because I assume its healthcare access is similar in neighboring countries, so it doesn't explain Nicaragua and El Salvador specifically. You want to have, you want to be open to every possibility, but you also, because of time reasons, you need to prioritize, and you might want to rule out some branches and not spend a lot of time on them. So I say the priority is low on this one. I say it's unlikely. Similarly here, I don't think this is anything. Labor conditions are probably similar also in neighboring countries. So let's just say, okay, we deprioritize this, we rule this out. And then for the ones that you think seem like plausible, I think all of these probably seem plausible. We'll say this is high priority, and then we can assign, different branches to different people. Often you're working in a team. Certainly for a question that's as broad and complex as this one, you would probably be working in a team. So let's say we assign this node to someone. They can set their current status, where they're at as they go along. And then maybe we would say, medication and substance use. Maybe there's some medications that they use in that area, or some traditional remedies, or some unregulated spirits. Moonshine, maybe, I don't know. It's a possibility. So let's say we assign this to another person. And maybe, workers' rights, maybe they have particularly bad ones in these countries. So we'll say this is worth looking into, and we'll assign this to someone. So that's like the first step, diagnosis, and this, this question is very complex. This is like more scientific, but applied to business, root cause analysis is something that it's used in manufacturing a lot. It's also in the strategy consulting approach. Diagnosing the cause or causes of problems is like a first step. So, and this is a good tool for doing that. Now I'm going to move over to a different case. Again, I'm going to create an issue tree. And here's my question. I'm a political strategist for the British Conservative Party. Opinion polling shows we have the lowest support in 50 years at 20% support. The newly established Reform Party has taken a lot of our support. They're at 30%. They're a right-wing populist party led by Nigel Farage. How can we basically regain our supporters, win back supporters that have been taken from this newly established party? So this is like a question that's very complex, and somebody in that party is probably trying to figure it out right now. Again, I'm going to upload some sources of information just so the AI, so I've taken 2 Financial Times articles, just so the AI has some context. I click send. All right, so it generated the tree for me. I'm going to click here, boom, and it gets added to the canvas. And so again, yeah, this is a more solution-oriented tree. So you got the top level question is how can the Conservative Party regain support from this new party, which has taken a lot of its voters. And it breaks it down into parts of the potential solution, but here it's actually just all of these. Basically, all of these are a part of the solution, and so it's kind of an analytical framework of just all of the parts of the solution. So, and again, it's broken it down in a MEC way. So it starts here at the highest. The first breakdown is into high-level categories or buckets of solutions. So address the policy gaps that drive voters to Reform UK, fix the credibility and trust deficit with right-wing voters, neutralize Reform UK's unique advantages, and create a compelling conservative populist narrative. And then it breaks it down a little bit further into, again, these are still buckets or categories, but a little bit more concrete. And these are a part of this solution. They're sub-issues. Immigration, national sovereignty, economic policy. How can we fix the credibility and trust deficit with right-wing voters? There's one part of it is delivery and competence, rebuilding the reputation of the party as a party that delivers on things that people care about. Authenticity and conviction, which is it's related, but it's a different thing. This is about convincing the voters that the politicians in that party actually are authentic and actually care for their well-being. All right, how can we make that make people believe that? Then maybe can we position ourselves as an anti-establishment party? Maybe that's a part of the solution. It's yeah. And then under this delivery and competence, we have one. So how can we rebuild our reputation? One part of it is the track record. Can we acknowledge past failures and present a credible plan for future delivery? How can we do that? What arguments should we use to convince the voters that they should look past our track record? What are some rhetorical things that we can do? We can evaluate whether that will work or not. And then another thing is, before the next election, can we deliver some good policy, some quick wins that will, win us some favor among our, the conservative base before the next election? Maybe that's a part of the solution. And then another part of the solution, or another thing is, how can we neutralize Reform UK? One part of it is we can undermine Nigel Farage. We can question Reform's viability as a party that can rule the UK, or we can steal the ideas of Reform and appropriate them for the Conservative Party. And if so, then we got to ask ourselves, okay, which Reform policies could we legitimately claim as natural conservative positions, and how can we frame the messaging of that? So, okay, I don't know. Let's say let's look into this. That's like a sub issue of this whole thing. That's one part of our analysis. Which policies could we take from the Reform Party? I'll get the AI assistant to do this analysis for me. I'll set this policy adoption as the context. What are the top 3? Okay, so yeah, so I'll get the AI assistant to do this for me. And when I ask it this question, it has the whole tree as part of its context, so it's context aware. And what that does is it makes the AI understand the high level overall reasoning. And so if you ask it to do an analysis or answer a question at this level, which I just did now, it knows that the end that you have in mind is answering this top level question, and you're asking a question at this level because you're interested in that as it relates to how it answers your top level question. So it gives you a little bit more focused answers, and this actually pretty simple thing actually improves the responses quite dramatically. Okay, so here it's produced this analysis for me, and it says, okay, the top 3 policies that we could credibly adopt are immigration control, fiscal discipline and debt reduction, anti-establishment messaging. And then it also gives me a key insight from the documents that I uploaded. It says that center-right parties rarely beat radical right parties at their own game. Therefore, the Conservatives' best place to co-opt the legitimate grievances, immigration and fiscal responsibility, while maintaining intellectual coherence around conservative values, rather than trying to match Reform's populist theater. Yeah, that's a good points, good insights. All right, I'll take that with me. Okay, and then, let's look into this one. Can we reframe these issues as ones the Conservative have always championed? Again, I'll get my assistant to do this for me. I'm lazy, so I'll just say this, perform the entire analysis for me. All right, so it's giving me this answer. Okay, can we reframe these issues as ones that the Conservative Party has always championed? Okay, so it understands that the key thing here is that it's how can the Conservative Party claim ownership of ideas that Reform has already popularized without appearing derivative or desperate. Yeah, that is indeed the key thing here. It says some good things here, some good insights, and it says the bottom line is that the Conservatives have to stop reacting and start leading, articulating a vision, blah, blah. Yeah, so pretty good actually, pretty good. And here is where the magic happens. So this is like a synthesis. You do your analysis, but here is where you pull out the essence, and this is where the magic happens. I'm going to change the context to say, okay, now we're doing this node, we're not at this, we're at here. And I'll say, okay, write synthesis at this level. write a short summary of the ideas expressed below, and then the key takeaway. And you probably want to do this yourself. You can probably humans are probably better at synthesizing, especially, but let's see how good it did here. Okay, so it says gives a summary of the ideas. We've identified 3 credible areas where conservatives could claim reform positions. And then it says co-option as a standalone tactic will fail. They have to adopt them with authenticity and coherence. And the real opportunity lies in repositioning the conservatives as the authentic conservative party, one that articulates a genuinely distinct vision, lower state intervention, national sovereignty, fiscal responsibility, rather than chasing reform's populist theater. This requires the party to stop reacting and start leading. So that was the idea that was expressed. That's the key message actually from the nodes below. And here, yeah, so it's summarizing the ideas at this level. And yeah, of course, you could repeat this process, do the whole tree, look into every element of this, do discrete analysis of components, and synthesize, write a conclusion, key takeaway. And you could, of course, work together with a team again. So you say, okay, one person looks into this part, another person looks into this part. We work along different work streams, and then we reach our overall conclusion. And a quick side note: it is, of course, possible to make these trees yourself. So like you can make these. Of course, you can, and you probably should make them yourself. This AI makes very good first drafts, at least. Very good actually. But in a lot of cases, you'll probably make them better yourself. Have a little bit more nuance. You'll have a little bit more ability to deal with nuance. But so you can move these things around, delete, add, and everything like that. Okay, now I'm going to move over to yet another case. This time I'm going to create a different logic tree, which is a hypothesis tree. So I'm going to type in my hypothesis. Okay, I hit enter. And so, so this, like, the idea here is, so Spotify has this page where they list which concerts are going on in different cities. Then you click on a concert and it takes you to Ticketmaster or another platform like that for buying tickets. So maybe, maybe Spotify could get into that business. Ticket sales for concerts is actually the biggest share of artists' income. So Spotify could potentially get a cut of that and increase their revenue in that way. But maybe that's a good idea, maybe it's not, who knows? And so we create a hypothesis tree where we start here at the top with that hypothesis, and then we break it down into sub-hypotheses that have to be true for that conclusion to be true. And again, like the other logic trees, it starts at very high-level abstraction, and then it breaks it down into more and more detail. So these are the top high-level assumptions. There's a compelling strategic rationale for this. The ticketing market opportunity is attractive. Spotify has unique advantages, and the implementation risks are manageable, and the ROI is positive. Okay, and then we look into these, go deeper here. This hypothesis is true if these sub-hypotheses are true. It strengthens Spotify's competitive position against rivals. It solves critical problems in Spotify's current business model. Let's go one level deeper. Okay, it diversifies revenue streams beyond subscription and advertising, reducing dependence on music streaming economics. It improves artist relations by providing additional monetization opportunities. It creates unique value proposition that Apple Music and others can't easily replicate. It increases switching costs for both artists and fans, reducing churn to competitor platforms. And here's one of the other branches. The implementation risks are manageable and the ROI is positive. Further broken down into these sub-hypotheses, acquisition costs and integration expenses are reasonable relative to expected returns. Operational and regulatory challenges can be overcome. Spotify can navigate complex ticketing industry. Antitrust and regulatory concerns. Target platforms are available at a reasonable price. Building in-house is feasible within blah. And so this one is of course a key assumption that we should definitely look into. We should look into all of these. These are all a part of our justification for this decision. But let's start looking into this one. Again, I'll use my AI assistant for this. I'll say, what are the top 3 players in the live event ticketing platform business, and estimate how much they would each cost to acquire. So, okay, so let's see here. It says that, okay, so Ticketmaster, estimated acquisition cost 15 to 25 billion. That's probably too expensive. StubHub, available for 3 to 6 billion. Eventbrite, available for 2 to 4 billion. So, okay, so is this, Ticketmaster is not for sale, also it's too expensive. Realistic options, acquire mid-tier platform. Okay, so StubHub, maybe, let's say, an evaluation that would allow for 20% internal rate of return would be like, 3 to 5 billion or something. So, if StubHub is available, then, this hypothesis is confirmed. I'll say that this is plausible, but I'd want to do a little bit more analysis to get a little bit more certainty, or determine that it's not, to disconfirm it. Here's another one that's important, antitrust and regulatory concerns. But I don't think that would be a big deal. I don't think Spotify is big enough for this to be a problem. But let's ask the AI. Is antitrust or regulatory concerns an issue? Evaluate how big of a deal this would be. It says short answer, yes, it is a material concern, but it depends on which platform Spotify acquires. Okay, if they acquired Ticketmaster, it would be a severe antitrust risk. That's not our plan anyways, so that's fine. StubHub or Eventbrite? It says likelihood of approval actually, okay. 60 to 75%. Yeah. Okay, and here it gives, yeah, good analysis. Basically, it tells me that 60 to 75%, so I'll say likely. Yeah. And so, yeah, so this is like a hypothesis tree. This is a really good way to apply like a scientific approach to decision making. And you kind of evaluate these, and you got to think in a hypothesis tree in a way. You want to be like open to your the data disconfirming the beliefs that you want to be true. So if this one was like totally disproved, then maybe we would have to change this tree and come up with something else. We'd have to adapt and overcome. But yeah, so this is a scientific approach to decision making. But here it says it's likely, and you just it doesn't really matter what you say or like how you say it. It's just or these evaluations are just loose probabilities. But they basically give you a nice like overview of how strongly supported things are by the data and like approximately how confident you are in them. And yeah, so this is a really great way of structuring your analysis. And similar to the other ones, we just basically apply this same approach. Start with the outermost node, go all the way in, conclude and synthesize at every level, and have different people looking into different things, reach your overall conclusion based on analysis of the many different elements to this. And one of the great things about the hypothesis tree is it translates very directly into your communication. So if you're producing this analysis for this decision, it's because somebody wants to know the answer. So you're going to want to produce some communication at some point after you've filled out all these nodes. And so you would want to make a presentation or a document, a report. And that's one of the features that we're going to build in the future is like an AI presentation generator. So we will take all of this writing and the structure and we'll turn it into a really nicely structured PowerPoint presentation. And the idea there is that humans should be doing the high level thinking, the analysis, and then we should use AI to automate all of those menial tasks like internet research is something that's AI should be doing, and producing PowerPoint presentations is also something that AI should be doing. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is the innovation angle here. So if you're using a hypothesis tree to make a decision, let's say there's two possible cases. The first case is that you're already pretty sure about the conclusion, and you just have to produce the analysis and justification, and find the data to support that decision or the data that refutes it. But even in that case, at a minimum, a hypothesis tree is a good analytical framework, and it sets up a nice, efficient workflow. The other case is when you're very unsure about the conclusion, like it's 50-50, it could be true, it could be not true, and this applies very often to innovation projects. And some of the best innovations are ideas that are contrarian and have like a low baseline probability that they're correct. But then there's one person that believes in it, bets on it, it turns out that they're correct, and then they get rewarded for it by the markets. A good example of this is Elon Musk. A lot of his companies that are very successful today are based on beliefs that he had 10, 15 years ago that were very contrarian and went against the consensus of experts at that time. So for those truly great innovations, like the ones that Elon Musk is responsible for, you need to have a way of discovering and building rational conviction in outlandish and contrarian beliefs. And Elon has attributed his ability to do this to first principles thinking, which is an approach to problem solving where you break the problem down to its fundamental truths and then you reason up from there. And by doing this, you sometimes reach correct conclusions that are out of sight for people that think more surface level and instead of going deep to the fundamental truths. And of course, Elon Musk, he doesn't use logic trees, he doesn't use Canvalytic. He probably has a cognitive style that's like first principles thinking naturally. But Canvalytic is inspired by this idea of first principles thinking, and we think that it can be a great tool for applying this approach in a repeatable, systematic way. And this is particularly useful for innovation. So I'll create an example here of a hypothesis tree for like an innovation project. This is a terrible idea, but I just use it because it's very easy to imagine and visualize in your head. But like, suppose my business idea was I wanted to make Uber for canal boats in Amsterdam. So there's small boats driving around Amsterdam. People can order a ride from point A to point B on their phone. Customers will be a combination of tourists using it for fun and locals using it as an actual mode of transportation. Okay, so that's my idea. It's stupid, but it's a good, decent example. So I say create a hypothesis tree for evaluating this business idea. All right, so now it created this tree for me. And so what we have here is like a framework for systematically pressure testing this business idea in a like scientific, hypothesis-driven way. And in startups and innovation, you want to have ideas. Some of them are outlandish, but you need to have a way of like an approach to testing hypotheses and determining if it's a good idea or not, if it's something that should be pursued. And this is already an influential idea. Like you have the lean startup methodology, which is about testing hypotheses to evaluate business ideas, and then deciding on whether to pursue that idea or not. So we state our top level hypothesis as this would work, and then we think, okay, what has to be true for that to be true? There has to be its demand, the unit economics has to be favorable, the operational model has to be feasible and scalable. And so these are things that we either have to be true, or we have to make them true by doing some problem solving. And so this becomes a very good map for evaluating your business idea, validating it in a hypothesis-driven way, scientific way. It also becomes like a map for problem solving, because, for example, this one, dynamic routing algorithm can handle canal-specific constraints. This is one of the assumptions that it's not something that you got to determine if it's true or false. It's something that this is like a problem that you have to solve. Okay, can we develop a routing algorithm that works under these conditions? So that's like so this is like a map. This is our path to creating this business, and this is one of the sub-problems that we have to solve. Whereas, for example, this one, this is one of those assumptions that we want to determine if it's true or false based on gathering some data and interpreting it. So the price point is acceptable to consumers. This one we could easily get an answer for. We could just go to the streets of Amsterdam and ask people, and then write down our findings, and then we evaluate it. Maybe if this one is disconfirmed, maybe the whole thing falls apart. But let's say we find out that it's plausible or likely or something like that. And then you think about, okay, what's the unique value proposition here? we could talk to some people, we could collect some data, do a competitor analysis, and evaluate how true this is. So this hypothesis tree approach to the validation of innovations is very much aligned with kind of how startup and innovation teams already work. This idea of applying a scientific approach and testing hypotheses is already well established and popularized through the lean startup methodology. This hypothesis tree approach is more aligned with a different school of thought, which is the theory-based view. But both approaches have in common that it's about testing hypotheses. So one of the advantages of this more theory-based view aligned approaches, which this hypothesis tree approach, is that basically having a theory, in this case represented as like a set of hypotheses and sub-hypotheses, which together is your overall rationale. This theory helps you kind of observe the world more efficiently and more correctly. All your observations are like interpreted through your lens of seeing the world. And when you follow the lean startup approach and you just kind of loosely formulate some disconnected hypotheses and then test them, it's not clear how you can reach conclusions based on that. With this, when you have a theory, you're more able to, you can collect data to determine if this is true or false, but putting it into a theory, like a system, a rationale, makes your data more salient and meaningful. The process of validating an idea, a business idea, an innovation is like a search problem, and so you're collecting data, but you got to make the data meaningful, and you want to be able to find the correct data quickly. You want to be able to interpret the data, get the most correct interpretation as possible out of the data that you're able to collect, and seeing it through the lens of a theory makes your search much more efficient. Like you can, and another thing is, if you set up a tree like this, it's very easy to see what are your critical assumptions. For example, if this one is disconfirmed, the whole thing maybe falls apart. And then you can also see which ones are seem plausible, seem face value plausible, and which ones seem questionable. And then you can just devote more of your energy towards the assumptions that are critical and seem not obviously true. So so that's how you can apply this to innovation. I think this is a good use case for it. One last thing I want to talk about is that this app is very flexible, and you can make a variety of visual thinking and strategy tools. For example, this is an opportunity solution tree. This is something that's used in product management. And so actually it's very similar to an issue tree. It starts at the top level with an overall question or an outcome that you want to achieve. So the outcome we want to achieve is increase the number of rides logged in our cycling tracking app, like a Strava, but for biking. One opportunity, so in product management they call it opportunities, but really it means like problem. So it's a problem that you can solve, so it's an opportunity. So one of the opportunities is that new users forget to log rides. Sub-opportunity, sub-problem, users need to build a ride logging habit. Riders cannot log during ride. Okay, and then at the last level we propose solutions to solve these problems. Maybe add ride reminders based on time and location. Maybe that's a good solution, who knows? And then we attach like an experiment that we can perform to evaluate whether this solution works, whether it achieves our top level outcome that we're trying to achieve. And here, you can attach the information, the experiment that you perform, the data. You can assign it to a particular person, and so on. And the way that you create these is very simple and very flexible. You can create anything here, but so you go here, so you do it like this. So this is for the product management peeps out there. This is, but it looks like it's like an issue tree basically. Here's another thing. This is dialogue mapping again, flexible. You can do whatever you want. Question for like mapping, mapping deliberation. A little bit of argument mapping here. So here's another big one. This is a decision tree. This is great for deciding what to do in environments where you have like other actors or you have random events. It's a classic strategy tool. So you can calculate like the expected value of some different decisions that you can take, given that there's that random events can take place. Your competitors can make certain decisions. Your actions can have different outcomes. So you can set like value and probability of different outcomes. You can set ranges of probabilities and get like a range of values. So this is another type of visual strategy or thinking tool. This is something that we haven't implemented yet, but will in the future. So yeah, you got different. You can make different visual strategy or thinking tools. And basically the idea is visualizing and structuring ideas is something that can augment human thinking quite significantly. So that's like the thread that connects all of this. And in the long term, Canvalytic will be like the Miro for analytical work, as opposed to for creative work. And so yeah, that's a quick demo of this app. It can be used for quite a few different things. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to try Canvalytic, there's probably a button somewhere on this website that says sign up or book demo or join the newsletter. So click one of those. And yeah, thanks for watching.